In the quiet town of Willow Creek, Maplewood Retirement Home stood at the edge of a dense forest, its weathered facade hiding years of forgotten stories. The residents often spoke in hushed tones about the ghostly apparitions that wandered the halls at night, but most dismissed it as mere folklore until the night of the storm. That evening, a violent thunderstorm swept through, plunging the home into darkness. The power flickered and failed, leaving the elderly residents in eerie silence, punctuated only by the distant rumble of thunder. As the staff scrambled to light candles, an unsettling chill swept through the building. In room 204, Mrs. Thompson, a longtime resident, sat in her armchair, staring at the flickering shadows. She had always claimed that she could feel the presence of those who had passed on, and tonight she felt their energy more intensely than ever. Suddenly, she saw a figure, a translucent woman in a faded nightgown, hovering at the foot of her bed. "Help us," the figure whispered, her voice like the rustling of leaves. Mrs. Thompson felt compelled to respond. "What do you need?" As the ghostly woman reached out, other apparitions began to materialize in the room. Men and women with sorrowful eyes, each one trapped between worlds. They moved closer, their expressions filled with longing and regret. Word spread through the retirement home as residents shared their own experiences. Mr. Jenkins in room 101 saw shadows darting past his window, and Miss Clara in room 303 heard whispers calling her name. Each encounter intensified, the ghosts becoming more desperate, their need for release palpable. The following night, Mrs. Thompson gathered the remaining residents in the common room. "We must help them find peace," she said, her voice steady. Together, they decided to hold a seance, hoping to connect with the spirits and uncover their stories. As they formed a circle, candles flickering in the dim light, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Mrs. Thompson led the chant, calling for the spirits to reveal themselves. One by one, the ghosts appeared, their faces hauntingly familiar yet indistinct. "Tell us your stories," Mrs. Thompson urged. The room grew colder as the air crackled with energy. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the anguished faces of the spirits. They began to share their tales of lost love, unfulfilled dreams, and lives cut short. But as the night wore on, something shifted. The spirits grew restless, their whispers turning into anguished cries. "You cannot help us," one shrieked, and the room erupted in chaos. Candles blew out, plunging them into darkness once again. Panic ensued as residents stumbled over one another, desperately trying to escape. In the confusion, Mrs. Thompson felt a cold hand grip her wrist. The ghostly woman was back, eyes wide with desperation. "Finish what you started!" she cried, her voice echoing in the darkness. The next morning, the staff found the residents huddled together, trembling and terrified. Mrs. Thompson, pale and shaken, told them what had transpired. They resolved to leave the home immediately, but the spirits weren't done. As the last of the residents packed their belongings, shadows flitted along the walls, and whispers filled the air. "You can't leave us," they cried, voices rising in a mournful wail. The retirement home, once a place of comfort, now stood shrouded in fear, haunted by the souls of those who lingered, forever trapped within its walls. And as the last resident exited, they all felt the chilling reminder: some stories are never meant to end.